What's going on, guys? Justin here with my Week 11 NFL Fantasy Football waiver wire ads. Please make sure to subscribe, as around 95% of you guys that watch are not subscribed, and I'm only 24 away from 300, which I would like to hit by this Sunday. So let's jump right in with some quarterbacks that I'd be looking to add for Week 11 and beyond. If you're looking for a streamer for the next couple weeks, then Jacoby Brissett might be your guy. Since starting his first game in Week 6, Brissett has posted a top 12 quarterback performance in every game. He gets the 49ers next week, who allow the 12th most fantasy points to opposing QBs, and then the Jaguars in Week 11, who give up the 3rd most fantasy points to the position. Joe Flacco was on bye this past week, but he posted 3 straight top 7 QB weeks prior to the bye, and he gets some favorable matchups ahead. He's got one of the best supporting casts in the entire NFL, so I can see him continuing his success. I mentioned the 49ers when talking about Jacoby Brissett, so let's jump back into them. Mac Jones is the QB6 heading into Monday Night Football for Week 11 after throwing for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Brock Purdy may be returning soon, so if you need QB help, he is an important quarterback to pick up, but Mac is still startable with as bad as the 49ers defense has been and until Brock Purdy returns. J.J. McCarthy has posted back-to-back top 15 quarterback weeks, and he gets the Chicago Bears in Week 11. The Bears allow the 5th most fantasy points to opposing QBs. JJ also adds some rushing ability, which is great for fantasy quarterbacks. He's had at least 25 rushing yards or a rushing touchdown in each of his 4 starts this season. Marcus Mariota has a top 15 quarterback performance locked in for the week after throwing for 2 touchdowns and adding 20 rushing yards. He gets the Dolphins next week, who give up the 9th most fantasy points to opposing QBs, a possible streaming option in Week 11. Jumping over to running back, and boy is it thin this week. Tyler Algier is easily one of the most annoying running backs this season, and Bijan owners must absolutely hate him. Algier has 2 more total touchdowns than Bijan and pretty much gets all the goal line work. In fact, Bijan hasn't had a carry inside the 5 since Week 1. Algier is one of the top handcuffs in the NFL, but he should be owned for his standalone value by itself. If Tyler Algier isn't the number 1 handcuff, then Brian Robinson is. And he's actually had 2 straight games of 11 fantasy points after averaging 10 and 5 yards per carry in those. He's also had a rushing touchdown in those games. If anything were to happen to Christian McCaffrey, then Robinson immediately becomes a top 12 fantasy back. The last running back is Amari DeMarcado. Now, in Week 10, he had less touches than fellow running back Bam Knight, but he did a lot more with them, totaling 13 fantasy points, which is easily an RB2 on the week. The Cardinals may get Trey Benson back in Week 11, but if they don't, DeMarcado is a deep option for running back needy teams. So let's jump over to the wide receiver, which definitely has the most options out of any position this week. Now, the word league winner gets thrown around far too often, but Alec Pierce could legitimately be a league winner. He's a full-time player on the best offense in the NFL. He's posted 48 or more receiving yards in every game he's played in since Week 2, and he's been a top 15 wide receiver in back-to-back weeks, pending Monday Night Football. There are a lot of mouths to feed on the Colts, but it seems he's developed a great connection with Daniel Jones, so I expect him to continue his success. Tez Johnson has somewhat quietly posted 5 straight games of 9 or more fantasy points, catching 4 touchdowns in that stretch, and in Week 10, he's the wide receiver 10 heading into Monday night. It's hard to predict and rely on touchdowns, but he plays on a good offense with Baker Mayfield in at quarterback, so the opportunity will always be there. I told you guys to start Jerry Jeudy in Week 10, which was quite a bold claim, but he came through with 6 catches, 78 yards, and a touchdown. This was his first double-digit fantasy performance since Week 1. The Browns also have a solid passing schedule ahead with the Ravens, though they're getting a lot better, the Raiders, the 49ers, the Titans, and the Bears. He could be a sneaky add in the final stretch of the season. Parker Washington has posted back-to-back 17-point fantasy games. Things will get a lot messier once Brian Thomas returns and Jacoby Myers gets caught up to speed, but it looks like Washington is the go-to pass catcher on the Jaguars for the time being. Troy Franklin somehow appears to be the wide receiver 1 in Denver, and he saw 9 targets again in Week 10. The last 4 games, his target numbers have been 10, 8, 10, and 9. He's the 14th most targeted wide receiver in the entire league. Make sure to add him as he gets great matchups in the final 2 games of the fantasy football regular season. Darius Slayton has had back-to-back games with 11 or more fantasy points. He did leave the game with an injury in Week 10, so that's something to monitor, but he's still a solid add as long as Jackson Dart is in at quarterback. I want to also monitor Luther Burden. He's closing the gap in utilization between him, Zacchaeus, and DJ Moore. Zacchaeus had another drop-filled day, so maybe Burden starts getting more work. And I believe DJ Moore was in and out with injury too. This combination could be the break that Luther Burden needs. Jumping over to tight end, I want to quickly mention that Dalton Kincaid and Oronde Gadsden both got hurt, left their games, and never returned. So this could be an important part of the video if you have those guys. Now, Juwan Johnson's ownership is slightly above 60% on Sleeper, but I want to make sure that he is rostered in your guys' leagues. The Saints just traded Shaheed to the Seahawks, so this should benefit Juwan Johnson. And he's also had 4 straight games of finishing as a top 13 tight end, and he's the tight end 6 on the year. The Saints have a couple of decent matchups in the final stretch of the fantasy season too, so make sure he is owned. I told you guys to start Dalton Schultz this past week, and he went off with 7 catches and a touchdown, finishing as the tight end 4 heading into Monday Night Football. He's seen 6 or more targets in 6 of the last 7 games, and he's seen 8 or more in 3 of his last 4. He's had a top 10 tight end usage so far this season, and it's been top 5 in the past 4 weeks. He's a sneaky tight end ad. Cade Otton is the tight end 6 in week 10, heading into Monday night after a 9-catch, 82-yard performance. He's seen 4 more targets in 7 of his last 8, and has had 6, 9, 5, and 12 targets in his last 4. He gets a great fantasy playoff schedule, but Evans and Godwin's injuries are something to monitor. Theo Johnson is coming off his best game of the season, catching 7 passes for 75 yards. He's seen 6 or more targets in 4 of the last 6, and has had 4 or more in 7 straight games. Johnson does have a week 14 bye, but he has some good matchups down the stretch too. And lastly, here are some defenses that I'd be looking to target. The Patriots at home against the Jets, the Texans at the Titans, the Ravens at the Browns, the Packers at the Giants, pending Jackson Dart status, the Falcons at home against the Panthers, the Cowboys at the Raiders, and the Bears at the Vikings. Thank you guys for watching this video. Please remember to subscribe and drop any questions you have in the comments.